Welcome to Your Faith, Your Power with Coach Shanice. I am on episode 6. I am so grateful to have this platform now. It's not something that I think if you've heard one of my previous episodes, I think it might have been episode 4, then you know it wasn't even something I'd ever considered until I started getting into coaching. And it has been a lot of reflecting, a lot of growth that is still happening and will continue to. And I just want to share that with you guys today. This past week, I'm going to be looking at my computer because I still do have a lot of notes on this one. This is actually the first time that I've felt like I needed notes because this has it's been a week, and I wanted to make sure that I'm coming to you guys with the full message from my internal conversation with God. So this past week, God sent me multiple messages, specifically surrounded around the fruit of the Spirit. Now, I received a podcast from my sister, and then I was searching on YouTube, and one of the suggested videos was actually a video or a sermon from Pastor Phillip Anthony Mitchell. And many of you may even know of him. He runs 2819 Church, okay, in Atlanta. Now, I normally don't watch him. I've only watched him one other time. I see him all over Facebook or Instagram and all the things. So he really isn't someone I normally even watch. But it was suggested, and it was something that I was like, you know what, let me do this. And the title had nothing to do with fruit of the Spirit. So essentially, in Pastor Philip's message, he was really highlighting how this day and age, this generation, we are all about influencing. We are all about, this influencer this influencer that. Social media has really kind of taken over. And there's a lot of people on there claiming authority in spaces and places that God never called them to. And he reminded me, I should say this, he educated me, right? Because there's a lot of growth that I have to do when it comes to the context and history of the Bible. I do understand a lot of the scriptural aspect in regards to like certain scriptures and verses that I've read that resonate with me. But a lot of times I miss the context as to when did this happen? What was the history behind it? That's actually where my brother-in-law comes in, because he is like a historian of the Bible. I mean, he probably wouldn't call himself that, but whenever I have a challenge or I don't fully understand something or I've said something incorrectly, then I can go to him and get clarification. And then he tells me, where to go. Essentially, he was saying that we should not be following people, especially when it comes to a spiritual aspect. We should not be following people when we cannot look at them, look at the works that they've put out into the world, or the things they're professing, and not see their fruits. We should be able to see that someone's work has led to someone else coming closer to Christ, genuinely, right? Some people are on social media right now looking for their own personal agenda. They're looking for the money, right? They're looking for the look at me's. And I think it's really important that message really resonated with me. And I'm going to tell you why. So as we know, I am building a business. I'm building a coaching business specifically surrounded around working with women who have experienced trauma, have things blocking them from really seeking the full calling that God has put on their lives, whatever that may be, or even being able to use their spiritual gifts because of these things. These things are kind of in the way. And as a coach, I have to put myself out there. I have to advertise my business. Just like most entrepreneurial women do, and really any, business, there's advertisement that comes with it. That's part of it. And I've struggled in some areas because sometimes I do feel like, okay, maybe this is more of a look at me. Now, is that ever the intention? No. But the one thing I will say is the devil's very, very good. He's very good. because my intention may be to put this out as a message, an inspiration or informative, educational. But the feeling I have as I do that sometimes doesn't always feel like I'm producing that. That's not always what comes back, right? So, and there's been times where I've had to think about, should I be posting this? Is this something that is gonna lead someone closer and make someone ask, who is this God she's talking about? And those are the things that I really struggle with on a daily basis. But I know for a fact that this is a calling God has put on my life. And this is something I constantly have to pray through and make sure that I am being very diligent about. And not to say you should not be able to have fun on social media. No one is saying that. I don't believe that's true at all. But I think truly when you're working in a space, or you're giving yourself this influence, or, you have this influence over someone and you're claiming that it's because of God, you have a responsibility to make sure that what is received from what you're putting out there is going to lead to more fruit, more genuine people coming to Christ. And if you're working in a place that you know for a fact God did not call you, but you are claiming authority in that space, you need to go to him on that. Because based on this message, it was very clear that so many people are getting tied up in the person instead of who that person is representing. And that's what Jesus literally did not want. As I had watched that, I immediately went to this podcast that my sister had actually sent me on Monday. I think I watched the podcast on Sunday. So I had finally gotten around to watching that podcast, or listening to that podcast. And this was about questioning your spiritual health. How are you able to determine your spiritual health? And for me, being able to determine my spiritual health really came down to, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it comes down to my relationship with God, right? My spiritual health in my mind is just determined by how deep that relationship is, how genuine and honest is that relationship, how much do I go to God? And while I do think that has something to do with it, because that relationship will deepen the stronger your spiritual health is, obviously. But based on this podcast by John Mark Comer, I hope I said his last name right. I'm not sure, but many of you may even be aware of him. That podcast was really specific around the fact that the fruit of the Spirit, right? The fruit of your spirit is what should be the thermometer, is what he said, to determine your spiritual health. You should be able to look around you, look internally, and see, am I practicing patience? Am I being patient with my kids? We all know we struggle there. Am I showing kindness even in moments where I'm being completely disrespected? If I know that the Holy Spirit is working through me and I'm claiming this, but I can't find joy in days where there's just so much struggle, right? And I'm going to say this, I am not preaching here. This is just the messages that I've received from God through these podcasts and these messages in this sermon. So I wanted to share it with you guys in this podcast episode because for me, it was very reflective on where I'm at and what I'm doing with my life. And it made me stop. It honestly made me break down, because I am never coming from a place where I'm not doing something so that it reflects back to God. I mean, every time I talk about my accident, I want people to know I did nothing. There was no part of that I had a hand in. My healing came from God. My strength wasn't my strength. It was literally spiritually. I did nothing other than having faith that if God saved me, there was more that he had planned for me. If God saved my children, there was more that he had planned for them. And because of that, I knew that I had to find my way through the pain, the depression, the questioning my worth, the feeling of a lack of independence, which all played a role in my overall confidence. And while I had horrible days, when I say horrible, days where I forgot to reach out to God, where I forgot, or I was in so deep and dark that I did not stop and pray. Or I would pray and I just was so overcome by my own emotions that I didn't even want to listen. I didn't even open my ears wide enough to hear his message and to feel the encouragement, to feel his love. So for me, now that I'm in the place that I'm in now, I'm recognizing that I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility because I've overcome those things. And if I'm going to help other people do the same, I have to be able to stop, check myself, recognize where my spiritual health needs to grow, how I can get there, and do the work. And I do believe that God gives us grace in the areas that we need to grow, and he knows that. Places where the Holy Spirit hasn't fully overcome us or fully taken over, or fully worked on us in that space, or that, on that specific thing, whether it's your patience, whether it's your kindness, whether it's your joy and your goodness. There's so many areas where we all need growth. Coach, therapist, president, like everyone, it doesn't matter what role they're in. Anyone that calls themselves a Christian, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are fully allowing the Holy Spirit to work within us. And in the places where we realize that we're lacking, or places where we realize that there's growth that's needed, we have to acknowledge that. And then we have to be cautious of that when we show up into the world. So I'm realizing that there's areas that I have to be vulnerable. And I think it's good too, to share those areas, right? To share where you're growing, so that when people come to you, they recognize this is not an area that she's healed from, but it's an area that she understands there's growth needed. And through that alone, I think that you will help people. The point to me is the work that I'm doing as a coach, as a mom, because that's a ministry too. I hope that you know that. As a wife, ministry too. As a friend, the work that I'm doing has to bear fruit. It has to. Yes, internally. But it has to bear fruit through the people around you that you are showing up to, using the Holy Spirit, using the change and transformation that the Holy Spirit will work out through you. You have to be able to bear fruit. If you can't do that, then I highly suggest that you get on your knees and pray. I don't have an answer for that. That's not my role. I am not a pastor. I am not a preacher. I'm just a woman who loves the Lord. I love the Lord. I love the Lord. Because I love God, I am willing to make changes, adjustments, and fully recognize where I need to be obedient in, where he's leading me, what changes he's making clear to me that I need to address. And today, I just want to encourage you to do the same. It's okay to recognize when the Holy Spirit is working on you in a particular area, or recognize when it's time to remove something from your life because now God has made it clear to you this no longer serves you in this new spiritual body, right? And I just think it's really important for us to be willing to make those changes, willing to acknowledge those adjustments, but do it in faith. Faith is so powerful when you know that God is directing you somewhere, but you cannot see the end line. You can't see the end goal, but you know he's giving you that direction He's told you that it's time to walk away from that relationship. It's time to stop yelling at your kids and take the appropriate adjustments. And I'm saying all these things, but guys, I'm talking to myself, not necessarily about the relationship, but just in general. I'm talking to myself, but I'm also talking to you. So I really want to encourage you, be open, pray. And when you're praying, just ask for diligence, ask for awareness that God opens your eyes, your mind, and your heart to making the changes that you need to make. And assess your spiritual health. Assess whether there's points of time where you're doing the look at me. Even if that's not intended, make sure that what you're putting out into the world is going to turn the spotlight back on him. And if you're not, or if it doesn't, then let's make a change. Thank you for joining me on Your Faith, Your Power for week 6. I'm so grateful to have your ears every week. And I just thank you so much for being loyal listeners. And I will absolutely see you next week with a guest this time. But I hope that this message resonated with you in some way. If you feel like you want to reach out or you have a story to share, I know that you do. I know that you do, because we all do. That's one of the ways God works within us. He provides and shows us places in our lives that need to be improved. And those places become testimonies because we can then share that with someone else so that they can improve those things too. So wherever you are in your life, wherever you are in your testimony or the healing that you're doing, just know my podcast is open. I am happy to offer a space here where you can speak openly and honestly about the relationship you've built with the Lord and how you shaped it and really helped lead to all the beautiful things that He will do. Once again, thank you for joining. If you are interested in a coaching package, please check out my website, refinedpurpose.com, where you can find all the information on the packages that I offer. Today, I pray for your healing. I pray for your spiritual health. I pray that you are truly walking in the calling that God has put on your life. And if you aren't yet, then I pray that He is diligently speaking to you and slowly helping you take the steps to do so. Till next week.